Ferrari had hoped that technical directive TD018 could change the course of the 2025 Formula One season. That was not the case in Spain, as McLaren secured a 1-2 finish, and the usual problems with the SF-25 emerged over the race weekend at the Circuit de Catalunya-Barcelona. However, some clarifications are needed regarding flexible wings, as several top-category engineers are not convinced that Barcelona accurately reflected the effects of this FIA directive. Ferrari is also analyzing the data on double front-end changes. We discussed this last week, observing the car's behavior on track via onboard footage. Beyond the nature of the various Formula One cars, the new technical directive concerning the aeroelasticity of front wings has inevitably altered the balance of several cars. With a more limited flexing effect, a greater lack of rotation was seen in the twistier sections. Meanwhile, in fast corners, oversteer became more easily triggered. Clearly, these effects were more noticeable on cars that do not have a particularly stable aerodynamic platform by design. Lewis Hamilton, for example, struggled significantly over the 300-kilometer race distance, practically never finding the right balance in the car. This does not necessarily mean it was only the fault of technical directive TD018. On the other hand, it is also worth noting that the Ferrari engineers and technicians decided to upgrade this specific aerodynamic component. There is a visibly striking and quite intriguing change in the junction between the end plate and the first two flaps of the front wing. As we have pointed out in a video from last weekend, it is a Mercedes-inspired innovation, but even more refined, designed in part to enhance the outwash effect produced by the car. We are talking about a key part of the car, since it's the first element to manage and direct airflow toward the center of the car body. Additionally, the suspension setup of the SF-25 is not as optimized as McLaren's, which has been using a pull rod front layout for 3 seasons now. This is another reason it will be very interesting to see Ferrari's performance in the Canadian Grand Prix following the data analysis done in Spain, and especially back in Maranello in days following the Montmello event. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur did his initial calculations at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. According to the French manager, the Ferrari SF-25 single-seater gained a tenth per lap in terms of race pace compared to the MCL-39 cars, although he admitted he is not sure why. That is why he could not confirm whether it was due to the new aeroelasticity coefficient. Still, something strange happened, considering the competitive hierarchy before the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. Just consider Williams, which in the previous 8 races had consistently been the top team's closest follower, but could not manage that at Montmello. Not to mention Sauber's breakthrough, as the team delivered a strong performance and even beat one Ferrari car with Nico Hülkenberg. Despite the various statements from drivers and engineers, more confirmation is likely needed to define the impact of technical directive TD018, where aeromechanical compromise becomes more significant. On a track with a variety of corners to optimize, the new equation on flexible wings might become more apparent. From what we gathered in the paddock, this is the hope of several teams, Ferrari included. No one expects massive differences, but as noted, the effect could be more noticeable, perhaps starting at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. It should also be said that a team's skill in car setup work is still decisive. Where flexibility is reduced, such as in high-speed corners, car stability naturally decreases. And by adjusting the car's parameters, it is possible, at least partially, according to some engineers in the paddock, to compensate for the lack of flexing. In this regard, Ferrari may not be in the best position, considering that the Italian car's operating window is quite narrow. That is also why the Maranello team is pushing to accelerate development, aiming to introduce a new floor in Austria. This would also be useful for the aeromechanical upgrades expected by the end of the summer, barring further issues. Meanwhile, all eyes are on Montreal, where curb riding will be a central aspect. Specifically, the North American track's notoriously bulky curbs must be attacked to be fast. In this case, Ferrari's suspension layout, generally less stiff than McLaren's or Red Bull's, could be an advantage when setting up the car, requiring less compromise. In addition, following last week's simulator studies, updated with real-world flexibility data, Ferrari expects to extract more from the car. The goal is a greater level of understanding, thanks also to feedback gathered on the changes made to the front wing. So let's be optimistic. It's hard to do worse than Ferrari has done in 2024 here. After the fortunate podium obtained last time out in Barcelona, Ferrari therefore wants to keep scoring points to try to climb back up the standings. The Canadian Grand Prix will now be an important test for the Italian side while waiting for the first developments expected to arrive at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Last year, Ferrari experienced a true nightmare throughout the weekend here. After the first two free practice sessions that seemed promising, the Red team went into a complete crisis on Saturday with a double elimination in Q2 and a shocking double retirement that hadn't happened for years. That race marked the beginning of the summer crisis for Ferrari, which peaked with the floor brought to Barcelona and ended only in Monza thanks to the aerodynamic upgrade package and Charles Leclerc's astonishing victory. This year, even with a less competitive car that is really driving technicians and drivers crazy, Ferrari wants to try to shake off some frustrations and keep scoring points as in the last two Grands Prix, erasing the nightmare of 2024. Ferrari's problems are now well known. The car designed in Maranello cannot use the ideal ride heights and consequently works with a very narrow aerodynamic map that forces technicians to find difficult compromises. However, in Canada, the situation could be different. The Montreal track requires a lower mechanical compromise compared to the Circuit de Catalunya-Barcelona, giving engineers and technicians a wider range of setup options compared to recent races. As a result, the car can more easily enter the operating window and unlock performance that will be very useful. Furthermore, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal is mostly composed of medium and medium-low speed corners, and with high curbs and many bumps present, teams will most likely tend to use softer setups and higher ride heights in order to promote mechanical grip generation, especially at the rear during corner exit, reducing Ferrari's disadvantage regarding ride heights. All these factors could help Ferrari's cause since there is a chance to do well, and because in this very critical moment of the 2025 Formula One season, after terribly disappointing early-year expectations, a strong boost is needed to keep the Maranello team united and push everyone at the Maranello Racing Division and beyond to give their best. Meanwhile, with the Canadian Grand Prix yet to start for Ferrari, all eyes are already on the next Grand Prix in Austria. During that weekend, Ferrari will debut a new floor after the one brought to Bahrain. The changes should affect the diffuser area, particularly the kick and the Venturi channels, aiming to increase downforce and widen the setup window. However, the aerodynamic updates will not have an immediate effect because to see a real change, the debut of the new rear suspension is needed, planned for the Silverstone round in the United Kingdom. Only then should the floor be able to perform at its best and provide the clear performance boost to the SF-25 car which we all hope for. Frederic Vasseur himself recently stated that it will take some time to win again, estimated at about 2-3 months, during which the Maranello team will continue pushing hard to try to close the gap with McLaren and return where Ferrari deserves, on the top step of the podium.